Chapter 1: The First Encounter. It was a warm summer evening in Paris, and the city was alive with the sounds of music and laughter. In a quaint cafe, Amelie, a French artist, and Alex, an American businessman, met for the first time over a shared croissant. They struck up a conversation that would change both of their lives forever. "So, what brings you to Paris?" Amelie asked, her eyes sparkling in the candlelight. "I'm here on business," replied Alex. "But it's moments like this, meeting someone as captivating as you, that make me grateful for the opportunity to travel." As they talked, they found a deep connection, laughing and sharing stories into the night. They strolled along the Seine, stopping to take in the beauty of the city from a quiet park bench. Amelie leaned her head on Alex's shoulder, feeling a sense of comfort and contentment she had never known. The night came to an end all too soon, and they exchanged numbers, saying goodbye with a promise to stay in touch. Amelie entered her apartment with a smile on her face, already looking forward to their next meeting. But as she walked inside, she heard a loud knock on the door. She cautiously approached, wondering who could be visiting her at this hour. To her surprise, it was Alex. Chapter 2: The First Kiss. Amelie was excited and perplexed in equal measure when she walked up to the door. Why did Alex return so late at night? He was waiting there when she answered the door, his eyes reflecting a puzzling combination of longing and anxiety. He mumbled, "I couldn't wait till tomorrow," and then drew her into a passionate kiss that left her gasping for air. As they gave in to the exploding passion that had been developing between them, their bodies fused together. They explored each other, utterly lost in the moment as they kissed with heedless passion. Amelie was overcome with joy as soon as they separated. She was aware that she had just been kissed, and her heart was racing, and she knew that she had just experienced a kiss like no other. The next morning, Amelie was awakened by the warm sun on her face and the cheerful chirping of birds. She rolled over to find Alex lying next to her, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. "I have a surprise for you," he said with a grin. "Something crazy and romantic, just like Paris." And with that, they set off on a wild and romantic adventure, taking a horse-drawn carriage through the streets of the city. They stopped to admire the Eiffel Tower and sipped champagne in a charming little park. Their picnic on the banks of the Seine was filled with all things French, a crusty baguette, delicious cheeses, and a bottle of wine. As they watched the sun set behind the city, they cuddled and whispered sweet nothings to each other. As the night came to a close, they found a peaceful spot under the stars and fell asleep in each other's arms, their faces warmed by the moonlight. They knew that their love was just beginning and that they had a lifetime of adventures ahead of them. Chapter 3: The Sad Secret. Alex was seated on the side of the bed, looking into the distance with grief in his eyes when Amelie awoke. She asked him what was wrong after sitting up out of concern. He said, "Amelie, I have to tell you something really important. I must return to America to care for my sick niece before I can stay in Europe. I have no idea how long I'll be away, and it's breaking me." As she heard Alex's tale, Amelie's heart fell. She was aware of his suffering and understood that he was carrying out his duty. However, the idea of being apart from him was terrifying. She continued with tears pouring down her face, "I don't know what to do. We just met, and you need to go." "I know," Alex murmured as he embraced her. "But I pledge to return as soon as I can." Amelie, though, was stunned. The mere thought of Alex leaving was unbearable. Then something even more perplexing transpired. She sputtered, "I have a secret too," before adding, "I once was in love with another person. Although it happened a long time ago, it still bothers me." Alex's surprised eyes widened. He never anticipated hearing this from Amelie. They remained motionless for a while as they tried to digest what had just been said. "Why didn't you tell me?" With hurt in his voice, Alex questioned. Amelie remarked, her voice shaking, "I was afraid. Because I didn't want to lose you." They spoke for hours, revealing their worst vulnerabilities and concerns. They then understood that their love was more powerful than any secret. They gave each other a deep hug, knowing they would always have each other no matter what lay ahead. They were lying in each other's arms as the sun rose over Paris, their hearts beating in unison. They were aware that they had just developed their connection further and that they would work through any difficulties together. Chapter 4: The Next Step. Amelie was devastated when the time came for Alex to depart. As she watched him leave, she experienced a profound emptiness in her heart. She was unsure of how she would function without him. She was, nevertheless, adamant about helping him in any way she could. She promised to stay in touch and give him care packages and letters to get him through this tough time. Back in Paris, Amelie threw herself into her work and her passions, but she felt incomplete without Alex by her side. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, but she never lost hope that he would return to her. One day, she received a letter from Alex saying that he was on his way back to Paris. She was overjoyed and couldn't wait to see him again. When Alex finally arrived, Amelie was waiting at the train station, and they ran into each other's arms, tears streaming down their faces. They had both grown and changed during their time apart, but their love for each other had only grown stronger. They knew they had a long road ahead, but they were ready to tackle anything that came their way. They decided to take the next step in their relationship and move in together. They found a beautiful apartment near the Seine and began building their life together. They were happy and in love, but also a little apprehensive about what the future might hold. Chapter 5 and the End, a love story 30 years later. Alex and Amelie had first crossed paths in Paris 30 years prior. They had encountered many difficulties and obstacles over the years, but they always managed to get through them together. In front of their loved ones and in a lovely ceremony, they had been married in France. They now have 5 grandchildren and 3 children. They have always found time for one another despite leading hectic lives. They frequently engaged in extensive conversations while strolling hand in hand through the park. One day, as they were sitting on a bench and admiring the Parisian skyline as dusk fell, they started thinking back on their time spent together. Amelie's hand was in Alex's as he said, "Do you recall our first encounter? How anxious I was, and how lovely you looked." Amelie nodded and smiled as she experienced a wave of feelings. Alex responded, his voice full of affection and gratitude, "I never would have guessed that 30 years later, I would still be so madly in love with you." Amelie said as she stared at him with tears in her eyes, "The same is true for me. Every day, my love for you grows." They talked about their journey together and all the little moments that made it so special. They talked about how they had overcome every obstacle and how their love had only grown stronger with each passing year. "You know, Amelie," Alex said, "the little things in life are the big things. It's not about the grand gestures, but about the small acts of love that make all the difference." Amelie nodded, her eyes shining with tears. "You're right. Our love is a testament to that." As they sat there, watching the sun dip below the horizon, they knew that their love story was far from over. They had so many more adventures and memories to create, and they were grateful for every single moment they spent together. "Love is not just about the grand gestures and big moments," Alex whispered. "It's about being there for each other every day, through thick and thin. That's what truly matters."